discussed the question of the tefillin of Hashem. And on the surface it would appear rather difficult that it's the left hand, the tefillin of Hashem, that are referred to as Oz, the strength of the people of Israel. Normally you say strength is expressed in the right hand. So also it says that the Oz, which is referred to Hashem Oz Le'amo Yitem, which is mentioned on page 6a of the Gemara, is referred to the Ruach Halamei Ha'aretz Kishev Hashem Nikra Lecha V'yavu Mimeka. And the Rebbe Gadol says there's Tefillin Sheberosh. So although in the Pasuk it says Bezrah was on the left hand, and that's how we also wear Tefillin on the left hand, but what really makes strength to the people of Israel, and apparently makes the nations of the world have respect, or even have fear, and or learn from their Yirat Shamayim, is from the head tefillin. So there's a paradox here which we have to understand, and I'm grateful for our student here who raised this question. Now, as I found a brilliant, deep interpretation of the Ha'amek Davar, which means it goes deep into the matter, which is the name of the commentary on the Chumash of the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivas Volozhin, known as the Netziv, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. He was a great master of Halakha, of Gemara. He wrote very deep works, and at the same time, he was one who mastered the Torah Shebichtav, written Torah, in an enormous fashion. So I'd like to paraphrase his interpretation. So in order to do that, I'd like to ask you to look at the end of last week's Parsha. I've got the Jerusalem Bible, page 78. Chumash, at the end of Parshat Bo. Without really looking deeply at the Chumash, you won't understand the meaning of tefillin. Because the reason why this is very fascinating, we wear tefillin every day, the week, and we don't realize the depth of tefillin. So as you surely know, the first time that tefillin is mentioned is the end of Parshat Bo. Even before the Torah was given as a whole, but those mitzvot which are connected with the Exodus from Egypt, they're mentioned earlier, the time even before the Exodus. So if you will look in this chapter 12, chapter 13, the beginning of chapter 13, is the Parsha of Tefillin, Kasheshli Kol B'chol, sanctify every firstborn. So he has given the law of the firstborn. And then follows that law of this is the day he went up from Egypt, and took you out with a strong hand, and therefore you must not eat chometz. Then it says, when Hashem will take you to the land which He's promised your forefathers to give to you, then you should celebrate this divine service in this month. Celebrate Pesach. 7 days eat matzah, the 7th day is no festival, And then it says you should tell your son on that day, on account of this, Hashem did this for me when I went off from Egypt, and on account of the mitzvah. Then it says in verse 9, it should be a sign upon your hand. And here your hand is spelled. How is it spelled? Can you see? Yud Dalet Cha, as it's usually spelled. Yodecha. And then it says, it should be a commemoration, a memorial between your eyes. It means the roots of your eye nerves. That's the top of the mouth, of the brain. Leman, so that the Torah of Hashem would be in your mouth. Because with a strong hand, Hashem took you out from Egypt. That's one parsha. The second parsha, where Tefillin are mentioned, carries on from verse 11. And then it also gives the law of Bechor. And then it also says, your son might ask you, what's it all about? Why do you have this special service? You should tell him, that Hashem took us out from the land of Egypt in the house of bondage. And then it says, when Paro hardened his heart and did not want to send us out, so Hashem killed the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of man and the firstborn of the animals. And that's why I bring the firstborn male animal, I bring it as an offering to Hashem, and my firstborn son, I redeem him. That's what we do today, Pidyon Haben. Then it says, Vayala Ot al Yodecha. It should be a sign on your hand, and here how is it spelled? What's the spelling?
With the hay at the end.
With the hay at the end. In which we learn out?
Weekend. Left.
The weaker one, Yod Kea. Well, the Totafot, what's that mean? The simple translation. Totafot?
2 by 2.
One? No, what's the simple translation? Ornament.
Ornament.
Right? An ornament between your eyes, because with a strong hand Hashem took you out from Egypt. Now, the development of this are the other two parshas. Which are the other two parshas where Tefillin are mentioned?
Devarim.
Yes. The parshas where Chanan and Eker. Yeah, it's the parsha of Shema and Vayim Shemoah. Both of them, we say daily, these paragraphs, mentions Tefillin. And how are they described there? Does it say Zikaron? Ukshatam? What's in the Kriyat Shema? You know by heart. Ukshatam, carry on with the pasuk. You all tell me what everybody answer. Can you please answer? You say Shema every day. What is it? Ukshatam, how does it go on? L'ot al yadecha, vayul l'totafot beinenecha. In the first parsha of Shema, it's in the singular. In the second parsha of Shema, it's in the plural. So, but here we find the word for tying on the hand. It makes ukshatam. You should tie them. You tell me, what's the difference between the way in which it's described at the end of last week's parsha and the way in which the mitzvah is described in Sefer Devarim? What's the difference? Anyone tell me? In Sefer Devarim, how do we describe the mitzvah of putting on tefillin? We say every day.
Totafot benenecha.
Kshartam al yedecha. I want the hand and the head to fill in.
Kshartam al yedecha, v'totafot al
benenecha.
So kshartam. Now let's have a look. In Parshat Bo, it doesn't say kshartam. It says vayal lecha le'ot. It should be a sign in both of them. The difference is the first one is yad lecha like yad lecha like Jenny written. Second one is Yad Kea. And what about between on the head? What's the difference? Vayu it says in the end of Pasha Po, it says, Ulizikaron Beinenecha the first time, and the second time, Ulizikavot Beinenecha. And what about in the Shema Vayom Shemua? How is it described? Does it
Lo
say?
al yedechem.
Yes,
Vetotafot beinenechem.
Yeah, Beinenecha.
In the plural.
Yes, and what else is different to the first time it's mentioned? The first time it's mentioned is Kadosh Li Kol B'Cho, the first Pasha at the end of Shemot, where it says, Ulizikaron Beinenecha. The second time where it says Totafot. And in Sefer Devarim, both of them are Totafot. Yeah? Now, so now I'm going to paraphrase for you a very deep commentary on this, because I want to thank you because my search for deeper understanding was initiated by you, by your questions. So I'm very grateful, because it's brilliant. I just say the Netziv. Perhaps I introduce this. I introduce it with a humorous episode. The Netziv was a fantastic scholar of the written Torah and even more of the oral tradition. And he was a great expert in understanding the nuance of every word in the Tanakh. In his time, in Eastern Europe, there were a lot of maskilim, but they were not in favor much of oral tradition. Even let's say, there's no question, that Bialik is well known, one of the greatest poets who helped to establish, let's say, the spirit of the Bible amongst the people of Israel. There was for a good time in Volozhin, but then he also read all the writings of Maskilim, and therefore he today, like in all the even not yet religious schools, they all learn Bialik, some of his poems. He was a great master of the Hebrew language. So one of these Maskilim, he came to have an argument with the Rosh Yeshiva of Volozhin, the Netziv. And the Netziv, the Netziv asked him, it gave us so many explanations, as you'll soon see how deep he is. How to understand which way anything is mentioned in the Tanakh, why here like that and here differently, which is a very deep study, which is very important. Why is it very important? Because I've seen it myself, in the non-Jewish world, and also even in most of the departments of Jewish universities, not in Bar-Ilan, but in those that don't claim to be religious in the academic world. They unfortunately have developed liberal criticism. They think they know the Tanakh, and therefore they have all sorts of explanations for different nuances of words. But if you prepare any text without classical commentaries, they become batel muvutal. You see, they don't understand the Hebrew of the Bible. So when this great maskil came to argue with the Netziv, and he was able to explain things. So, in fact, he asked him the following question. He said, in Eshet Chayil, which we say it's Friday night, we also say, Zomo Sodeh Batikvuchehu, V'chakol Lakna Laknani. The Eshet Chayil describes, as a mashal, a very active woman. Not a woman who only looks after the house, but a woman who conducts business. So it even says, even her width of the commercial understanding, she was like a commercial ship. She was able to bring her goods from far away. She dealt with international commerce. Some even say, compare this great lady who built up the Tzfat community. She was a lady who was so good in business, international business, in the time after the expulsion of Jews from Spain, she was able to develop Tzfat. describes her. So that it says, but when she's engaged in business, it says, then it says, what does it mean? But she gives the belt, she gives to the merchant. Yeah? So he said, what means it? Let me see the pasuk inside. You've got Jerusalem Bible. The better sense. You should see this because it's illustrated also by his exposition of the film.
Where is this pasuk located? Where can we look it up in the Jerusalem Bible? What page is that?
Just please, you can always wait till I have finished my saying. I'll tell you which page. It's the book of Mishlei, the book of Proverbs, which you will find at the end. You find it on page 825. So it says, Sadin asatava timko. She prepares sheets, sadinim sheets. Yeah? She prepares sheets of cloth for sale. She sells them. And she gives a belt to the merchant. So this great biblical scholar, and he saw that this Matzivi seems to look not so well. So he asked him that he tries to understand every phrase in the Bible. So he says, why does it say she manufactures sets of cloth, different type of cloth, the belt she gives to the merchant. So if she produces belts, why does she give them? Why does she give it to the merchant? She sells the cloth and gives the merchant. So he said that it seems said straight away. It's very simple. If you know business, people who produce cloth or wholesale, they manufacture it. They produce. They sell it. Even some is the wholesalers, some is the retailers. They sell the cloth. But they have to bind the cloth. Chagor is something which binds together. They have to put a belt round the rolls of cloth. So it also costs some money. They don't make a charge, not to the merchants. Perhaps if they would sell it in a shop, a person sells a shop, if the belt has to be strong, of good cloth and so on, in the retail shop you'd have to pay for it. But since she's a manufacturer, yeah, so therefore she gives over the large rolls of cloth to wholesalers or retailers, and therefore she says, since I'm selling a great deal, so the belt, which is very important and it's been very strong, I'll give it for nothing. That's why it's not Kanani. So when this great scholar of the Bible, the Maskil, said, excuse me, how do you get such, how are you able straight away to explain this pasuk? It's been a riddle in my mind for a long time. Because I also tried to explain every phrase in the Bible to a different nuance. It's not like ordinary newspaper or even ordinary literature. It's quite different. Every word has significance. So he said to him, Mishlei is Mishalim, they're proverbs. And you ask me, how do I come to such an understanding? I'll tell you why. It's because in Torah, if you really study Torah, not just with your simple mind, but with the aid of Torah Shebal Peh, like in the Shiva also was the highest level of study. There were many who kept a seder of learning 18 hours a day, and the level of genius there was the highest in all Eastern Europe. They would only accept people who could really study properly and develop the intelligence. That was against the Shiva. So he said, if you do Torah Shebal Peh and begin to understand, as follows. So I tell you, so he said, this pasuk that you asked me about is answering your question. How do I know? I know because of this constant study of Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's like this. Sadin, here is a mashal. In fact, Eshet Chayil, they say, Chayil is 48, because it's a mashal for people who, as it were, their lifelong love is studying the Torah. And there are 48 ways whereby you can acquire the Torah. And Chayil has which numerical value?
Which one?
The word Chayil. Chayil.
Gematria?
Yes.
48.
48. Eshet Chayil. So although the mashal speaks about this great woman, but the nimshal is Torah. So he said, so Sadin, really the basic business, la'asok b'divrei Torah, what the basic business of studying Torah? Studying Torah means you study Gemara thoroughly, you study Midrashim thoroughly, you look at all the classical commentaries in Midrashim that explain the Pesukim. So that you have to acquire. You have to acquire, so you've got to sell it. You've got to work hard for that. That's why you have to have a Seder of 18 hours. And not miss a Shia and so on. But if you miss out, then you don't get it, you don't grow. But if you immerse yourself, as they say, the word is liegen and lernen, but it means a kinyan. You've got to acquire it. You've got to be koneh. Therefore, batimko, you sell it. As a result, you're able to. The result will be you've got to make the cloth. Also, you've got to study it carefully. But what does Hashem do? Hashem therefore gives. You give it over to other people. Then, as far as side products, that is, that you also understand every word of the Tanakh and the answer of the Tanakh. So this pasuk gives the answer to your question. If you would study Torah, study Torah Sheba'al Peh, yeah, if you would join Yeshiva Voloshin and study Torah Sheba'al Peh, then you'll see of your own accord, you'll be able to understand the depth of the words of Torah Shebichtav. Because it's more simple. And that's the truth. That, of course, let's say today, what is the education we give to children? It's quite true. You give children, that's the best way. Children, when they're young, so they'll go through the Tanakh and learn it more or less by heart. That's why I'm very much in favor. And I've done it for quite a few grandchildren. They have today a system which could become more widespread. The youngsters, little children, they start learning Tanakh inside out to know clearly with the cantillation, and they sing it all the way through. Then they go to Mishnayos, then they go to Gemara. When they come to Gemara, then the understanding of Tanakh comes by itself. That's why the Gemara is filled with Pesukim. And as soon as you know all the Pesukim, so we see, you learn trying to do Gemara here, if you wouldn't have at the side written down Pasuk, you wouldn't know what it's talking about. Because it's assumed. The Gemara, after all, for thousands of years, was not written down. Maybe those traditions go back to the time when the Torah was originally given. So that's to explain. So I'm giving the illustration now to answer the question concerning tefillin. So, that's an introduction. Because we've discussed it a few times, and as a result, we will have left with the question. I'll tell you the major question again. There seems to be a contradiction or paradox, the right side and the left side. Because all the nations will see the name of Hashem is called upon you. This is the great strength of the people of Israel. And the great strength comes through them seeing the tefillin on the head. The tefillin on the arm they don't even see. So how is it that it said, Nishba Hashem, B'yamino, that's the Torah. Yeah? And the Zroa, Uzo, but his strength is in the left hand. In other words, the left hand contains the strength. But you learn it out from the Pasuk of Oz. And what is the odds? The tefillin which you see are from the head. And there's a further question which I haven't discussed with you yet, but you may know it. In some synagogues they sing Anim Zemirot, yeah? Probably in your shul also. Anim Zemirot. So one of the base verses, Keshet Tefillin Herele Ana Tmunat Hashem Lenekadeina. When Moshe Rabbeinu asked to understand the ways of Hashem, what did he show him? The back knot of which tefillin?
The Rosh.
Tefillin on the head. And in that way he was able to understand. Otherwise, the big question of Moshe was, why do saints suffer and why do the wicked prosper? He wouldn't understand the ways of Hashem. So Hashem said, you can't see me in the front, you only see me in the back. Back of what? Or tefillin?
Shorosh.
Shorosh. So we see the tefillin Shorosh is the way in which Hashem shows His strength to Moshe Rabbeinu. So we've got to understand what lies behind all this. So now this I wanted I want myself to understand it well, which means I want you to participate. I'm going to start explaining in his manner. So first, let's go to the first time tefillin is mentioned. If you turn to chapter 13 of Shemois, the end of last week's Parsha. Have you all got it? Especially it must be of great interest to someone who is spending time writing out these Parshas. So you see what wealth of understanding comes from the Ha'amek Davar, who likes to go deep in understanding the verses of the Chumash. So the first time this is mentioned is, here you'll find it, on page 78, recent Bible, chapter 13,
the last pasuk,
verse 9. That's the first time tefillin are mentioned.
Yeah.
So it says, "Vayar lecha le'ot al yadecha u'lezikaron beinenecha." So the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Hashem took you out from Egypt. So to understand this verse, so it's like this. That it's not enough, because it's not enough that you keep Pesach. Pesach you keep once a year to remind you of Yetziat Mitzrayim. It's just like a person tells his son some great event to teach him a moral path in life. And then every day reminds him, briefly. Similarly also here, Hashem commanded, it's true, once a year, on Pesach, you have to speak about the exodus from Egypt at great length, in order, afterwards, to make a bond every day with him. You make a bond on the head, on the hand and the head. So you call it Mishtatut Halev Hamor. You say also for tefillin, to subject the heart, and tefillin opposite the heart, and the brain to Hashem. And then it says, in order that the Torah will be in your mouth, the purpose of laying tefillin is that the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth, because tefillin is like the Torah. It's actually the tefillin like a small holy ark that carries 4 leading passages in the Torah. Just like the Torah investigation leads a person to become faithful to his God, so that tefillin, they do this for every Jewish person. And that's why it says in the Mechiltan, this is also very important, he who busies himself with the Torah is freed from tefillin. What does that mean? So he said, it does not mean, the early thought that already brought from the Beit Yosef, it does not mean that he doesn't have the mitzvah of tefillin. What does it mean? But he said the purpose of the tefillin which is next to Chumash, is not so necessary for someone who constantly learns Torah. Nevertheless, he's still got to fix in his mind and constantly fulfill the mitzvah that applies to everyone else. Like all the mitzvot of the Torah, they have a reason. You see this, even they've got a reason. You have to keep it, even if the reason doesn't apply. Because every mitzvah is a chok in certain ways, in a place where the reason is not applicable, which he explains frequently. However, there are always more hidden aspects of obedience to Hashem. Hashem knows everyone has to do it. One of the ideas of everyone having to do it is that the strong can always help the weak. Let's take this as an example. If the law would be a person constantly learning Torah, so he wouldn't have, as it said, Manji Torah Shemficha, then he wouldn't have to put on tefillin. What will happen? The weaker people will say, well, if he doesn't wear, he learns all the time, so why should I wear? And that, like I say here in the yeshiva, I don't allow a person to go to daven late. Why? Because they need other people to stay in bed. And really I would prefer the students, unless they have different minhag, like Sfardim and so on, that I can stand on Shabbat and Yom Tov, if they want to have to go to their specific Eidah, it's okay. But those that don't, I'm also sometimes afraid, some of the beginners and others who are not yet into Yiddishkeit so strongly, that they don't come Shabbos morning. They don't daven anywhere, which is terrible. I think about it. Many of them come from a place, conservative synagogue, reform synagogue, then they come to Shiva davening. They don't come to davening at all. And sometimes I ask the person, people don't always reply. I say, where did you daven? I don't get a proper response. So therefore, very important this question. So also, tefillin, he's bottom in tefillin from the point of view of one of the major reasons of tefillin is that you should enter into Torah. So, then he says furthermore, that why? Now you might say, why is it so important? Kivyod chazaka. You should, with a strong hand, Hashem took us out from Egypt. You shouldn't wonder, why did Berachot Ch want us to have so many reminders, the din of Bechor and the din of Pesach in addition every day, to make sure that we keep our trust and our understanding of the divine providence, children and grandchildren, the great should come for all generations. You have to implant in their hearts and in their minds that Hashem governs the world, and that you've got to accept His hashgacha. And that's why it says, when it says at the beginning, the Pasha Va'era, when Moshe Rabbeinu came with a message, you're going to be released from enslavement, he says they couldn't listen to Moshe. Mikotze ruach, they were so immersed in idolatry, u'me'avodah kasha. So even avodah kasha means with hard labor, but it also means the strong barrage of idolatry which surrounded them constantly. So it would appear they didn't want to leave. And really we see also that we do find the first time it's mentioned that Hashem, in fact it says it, that they believe when they heard Hashem is going to redeem them, they'll be able to go. So the reason is because Hashem, He says, my providence over you is dependent upon your actions. And since they knew our actions are filled with idolatry, we've reached almost the bottom, and therefore he might find it difficult. That's why Hashem gave us a mitzvah to bring strongly into our heart that Hashem it demands that you should remember it constantly, because you can so easily fall into a situation where the barrage of the environment, like in Egypt, will blot away your faith in Hashem and His providence. So now let's go now to the second time, which is more important, which is mentioned on the same page, in the same paragraph 13, verse 16. There it says Yodacha with the extra hey, your weak hand, Todafot Beinenecha, and an ornament between your eyes, so on this, said as follows, that here Hashem explains what are the weapons of the people of Israel, which is the strong hand that every Jew possesses. So it said that Tefillin, they have the power of the Torah to subject the heart and the brain to the kingship of heaven. But so also the Tefillin have the power of the Torah, which is the sword of the people of Israel, to protect them from all troubles, as is mentioned by Moshe Rabbeinu frequently, that the power, the strength of Am Yisrael is the Torah. But this only applies to individuals who are fit to toil themselves on learning Torah. But when we speak about the whole nation, so Hashem has given mitzvah the tefillin, which is a bit similar to the zchut of those who busy themselves in Torah. And there are two mitzvot, tefillin, shel yad v'shel rosh, which corresponds to the written Torah and the oral tradition. So it says Torah shebichtav is called the names of Hashem. You know, do any of you know, and now what is a Geniza?
Ken.
What's Geniza?
Where you put things that have kadosh words on them that you're not using.
Do you know another older name for Geniza?
Shemos.
Shemos. Suppose Shemos is not used much today, but for previous generation used frequently. Shemos really means names, because the essence of Geniza is that the name of Hashem is holy, and therefore you're not allowed to blot it out, and you shouldn't burn it either, and therefore anything that contains the name of Hashem, you've got to bury it. That's the Geniza today. And that's why there's so many texts that contain the name of Hashem. And Kishem Hashem Ekra, it's based on Pasuk, when they call up the name of Hashem, which we learn now at Berachot Torah. The whole Torah, sages say, is the name of Hashem. Even if there's no actual name of Hashem written, but whatever written in the Torah, it contains the divine power of inspiration. It's the way in which Hashem is known is through the words that He gave over to human beings. So therefore, holy texts are called Shemos. So it says that in a way, the Shem Hashem is the written Torah. The oral tradition is different. So he said, the Pasuk, which we have here in our Gemara, the classic, Baruch Alamei Aretz Kishem Hashem Nikra Alecha, that refers to the name of Hashem called upon you. So also, the Tefillin Shel Rosh, by there it says, they all see it. And Tefillin contain 4 key passages of the Chumash, Tziat Mitzrayim and Matan Torah Mitzvot. So, and the nations of the world, what influences them until today, which is the bestseller of all literature in the world,
The
Bible, the written Bible. The written Bible has enormous influence on the nation of the world. I mean, it's written in the Chumash, that's what's going to happen. And it has happened. So that he says, the tefillin sharosh, that is open for them all to see. And the Gemara says explicitly in Brachos later on, page 57, that Zet Tefillin Sharosh also actually on our page as well, page 6. But he says the Torah Shebal Peh, it should be kept hidden. The Gemara said in Moed Koton that the Tefillin Shel Yad, they correspond to the hidden part, because the oral tradition is hidden from the nations. It's also hinted at in Tosfos, who says the nation of the world, they don't see it. It's covered over. I want to say something on this. Let's say one of the greatest non-Jews who knew the Old Testament by heart was Professor Albright from Baltimore, John Hopkins University. And he's is still in now today regarded one of the biggest experts on biblical history and archaeology. And in fact, he believed that the Bible creates all along. And when he was in the library, main library, I see some 15-year two Bochrim learning Gemara. So because Axel said, what you studied, explain what they said. He said, he knew nearly all the Semitic languages, also on his fingertips. So he said, in all my studies for many, many decades, I still can't understand this Talmud. And you 14-year-olds, you seem to master it. How do you do it? Really, it is so. The non-Jews, with all that, it's hidden from them, and that's why there's when they started translating Talmud in other language, there's certain questions raised is really advisable, and the truth is that, of course, even many of the non-Jews have cut up the Bible, and unfortunately, the Talmud even more so. And all they do is many of them distort the Talmud. The Talmud Jew is the regular bloodline against the Jewish people. Don't understand it. Anyway, Tefillin Shel Yad correspond to hiding the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Then he goes on and says, we also know by Tefillin Shel Yad, the first time they mentioned Yodecho is Yodecho ordinary Chof at the end. Second Parsha, Yodecho means Yad Keo, the weaker hand. And you have to put it on the left hand. Why? Because Parsha Rishonah says Tefillin got the power of Torah, the miktzat, to accept upon oneself the yoke of the kingdom of heaven, and to subject the heart and the brain to the providence of Hashem. That's why it's Zikaron Bein Necha. It should be a Zikaron to remember the purpose of the exodus from Egypt. And that's why it says, Shel Yad come before Shel Rosh. Because at the beginning, you have to subject the heart and then the brain. I know. First you've got to have the motivation, and then you can develop the brain. In other words, if you want to really learn Torah, you have to have desire. Desire is an emotion. It's like this. It's well known. All scientific investigation made by human beings, the birth of it is not in the intellect. The birth of it is in the desire. In other words, the person who's got reasons what he's looking for. He loves to find out the truth in a certain subject that he feels is close to his nature, his interest. It's the interest of a person that brings him to develop his intelligence in that direction. So a person interested in weapons So therefore his whole scientific study is, they paid money for it, so they want to be successful in it, in that particular subject. So we shouldn't think the intellect is objective. Every person has a certain bias in favor of selecting facts. Even, let's say, a person wants to describe historical situations. So the question is, what is your interest? And sometimes people they'll say, well, I come from Great Britain, therefore my lectures on history of all the countries in the world, but I've got a special interest in Great Britain and the Empire. So that comes out in its historical analysis even of other countries. And you see that all the time. The Rishalmi says this, what's in the third part of Kriyas Shema Lo Taturu, you shouldn't go astray, Achri Levavchem, Achri Nechem. That means, it says the heart and the eyes are the two agents of sinfulness. The eye sees, and then the heart desires. No, it's the other way around, really. The eye, what do you mean? The eye sees first, nevertheless the first way you look at things, it comes suddenly, you can't help it, but you see, let's say a person sees something which stimulates in him rather low instincts. So, the person has to try and see that his heart should not desire, he shouldn't look further on it. You should take his eyes away from seeing evil. That's why you've got to first subject your heart, in order to take away things that strengthen your selfishness or your more materialistic desires. And that is really why even a person who's left-handed should put his tefillin opposite the heart. So I would have said, but the heart has to be subjected first. So therefore, a left-handed person should still go and put his tefillin on his left hand, not on his right hand. So that's why the first parsha says Yodecha. But the second parsha comes to teach us no. But by tefillin there's something extra. See, if you go up to Lo Tatura, so the heart comes first. So first you've got to subject the heart to Hashem. And the heart is on the left side. Even a left-handed person, but his heart is not put on the right side. So it's still on the left side. So therefore the din should be that a left-handed person should still put on tefillin on the left hand, not the right hand. That's the first parsha which teaches hashgacha. But the second parsha said no. That's when the second parsha, which deals with the power of Torah for warfare, for protection. So here you have the two powers, Torah Shebaktav and Torah Shebalpeh. That's why it says by the Tefillin Shavrosh, the second time, the Totafot. Doesn't this? Totafot means an ornament, which, like the Torah Shebaktav, all the nations of the world see the name of Hashem is called upon you. It's an ornament. It's something that is there for the public eye, to see the ornament, the beauty of Torah. So it represents the Tanakh, which they see. That's the Tefillin Shel Rosh. Tefillin Shel Yad is Torah Sheba'al Peh. So because of that reason, Tefillin Shel Yad comes before Tefillin Shel Rosh, just like the sword. That is, if the sword is in its sheath, it's inside it, then if the sword is inside the sheath, it's an ornament. But let's say you've got a sheath and you haven't got a sword inside, then it's no use at all. Then it's not even an ornament. In other words, a sheath, you've got a very nice sheath, but if there is a sword inside, it's not attractive. So it means, because why? Because the purpose of the sword is to fight. and therefore it's got no glory to anyone who carries it without, unless you've got a sheath as well. So the purpose of the written Torah is manchiman minim Torah Shabbat Peh. A person who believes in the oral tradition, then the Bible has significance. Because it gives proper meaning to the Bible. They know, whatever you know is an oral tradition is of great value. But what happens if he doesn't know it? Then it won't help. The purpose of Torah Shabbat Peh, even if he doesn't look in the Torah Shabbat, it helps the battle of the people of Israel, except that it's not then all its beauty. That's why the Torah said, first put tefillin shel yadon before tefillin shel rosh, to teach us that the Yif shel Torah shebektav and Torah shebeklal. There's no way you can have the written Torah without the oral tradition. Therefore, this is like the sword. And it's fit for a person who's left-handed that his right hand should wear the tefillin shel yad, like a mighty person who is left-handed, so the strength of his sword is on his left hand. In other words, the power of Torah comes through Torah Shabbat Peh. And it said, like a sword and a sheath. It means a person, if he's left-handed, he'll do battle with what is everybody else's. What everyone else's left hand. He'll battle with what's his right, what's his stronger hand. His stronger hand is left. That's why it says in the second parsha, Yod Keo Didei.
It's 1 o'clock.
So, yeah. Okay. So, with this, which we'll soon see explained, this Gemara, a bit more, explains the Gemara we could learn in keep learning. In other words, the tefillin gave strength to Israel. That's what's in. Strength called Oz. The strength comes really via Torah Shabbat Peh. Because without Torah Shabbat Peh, there's no strength in Torah Shabbat. That means those, well, let's put it in contemporary terms, those who regard the Bible as great literature. It's an ornament, beautiful. Yeah? Beautiful literature. The whole Bible contains the greatest pearls of literature. But really the emptiness meaning is like a sheath without a sword. It doesn't give power. The power of the Tanakh comes out through Torah Shabbat Peh.
So in the tefillin, in the sword and the sheath, the sword, the source of power, the oral tradition, that's the tefillin of the hand.
Yeah.
That's the tefillin of the hand. That's the Oz.
Yeah.
So you're not here for
Amazing.
So we put the